An elderly woman walks into a familiar bank expecting routine service until she's met with doubt, suspicion, and outright dismissal. But just one sentence from her son turns the entire moment on its head. The automatic doors of Hillstone Federal Bank slid open with a whisper, welcoming the late morning sun and the steady rhythm of Gloria Hightower's footsteps. At 73, she carried a cane, not out of necessity, but for the quiet confidence it provided. Her emerald dress was crisp, her silver hair carefully arranged in the timeless style she had favored for years. In one hand, she held her purse, in the other, a check bearing her name. For nearly 15 years, this bank had been a familiar stop, same branch, same routine, always arriving midweek after breakfast at Janine's diner. But today, something felt off. The woman at the front desk barely glanced up, not even offering a polite greeting. Perhaps they were short-staffed, or maybe courtesy was becoming a lost art. Gloria dismissed the thought and moved to the counter, waiting patiently behind a man in a baseball cap. Minutes ticked by, and when her turn arrived, the young teller, barely in her 20s, stole a nervous glance past Gloria before murmuring, "One moment, please," and vanishing into a back room. Still holding her check, still wearing a gentle smile, Gloria remained in place. Moments later, a tall woman in a pale gray blazer strode forward, sharp features, sleek blonde hair, assessing eyes. Her name tag read Leslie Ryland, branch manager. Arms folded, Leslie's voice was cool and measured. "Can I help you, ma'am?" Gloria lifted the check slightly and nodded. "Yes, I'd like to deposit this into my savings." But Leslie didn't take it. She scanned the document, then Gloria, her expression unreadable. "May I see your ID?" "Of course," Gloria replied, retrieving her license. It was a routine retirement payout, nothing out of the ordinary. Yet Leslie scrutinized it for far too long before finally asking, "And how exactly did you acquire this?" Gloria blinked, caught off guard. "I'm sorry," Leslie waved the check slightly, her voice cool but firm. "This is a significant amount. We need to verify before processing. We've had instances." Gloria tilted her head, her brow lifting slightly. "I've deposited similar checks before, never had an issue." Leslie's smile was tight, forced. "Well, banking policies have changed. I'm sure you understand." A man a few spots away shifted uncomfortably. Someone behind Gloria cleared their throat. People were watching now. Gloria inhaled slowly. "Miss Ryland, I have all my information. This is my account. I have direct deposit. I've banked here for years. My name, my address, my ID, they all match." But Leslie didn't waver. "Still, we need a deeper verification. You'll have to come with me to the back." That's when Gloria felt it. Not fear, not shame, but something closer to insult. Not just for herself, but for every older woman ever dismissed, every person ever sized up unfairly. Her voice remained steady. "I'd rather stay here." Leslie leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. "Ma'am, either you cooperate or we'll have to place a hold on the funds and report potential fraud. We've seen people try things like this before." Gloria's chest tightened, but she wasn't about to argue. Not here, not with someone like this. Instead, she reached for her phone, her movements slow but intentional. As the screen lit up, Leslie's eyes narrowed. "I'm calling my son," Gloria said evenly, scrolling through her contacts. "He'll clear this up." Leslie let out a dry laugh. "Ma'am, calling your son won't change protocol. If there's nothing suspicious, there's nothing to worry about." Gloria didn't answer. She simply brought the phone to her ear and stepped slightly to the side. The bank had gone still. Only the soft tapping of keyboards and the hum of a copier filled the silence. "Hey, baby," Gloria said into the phone. "I'm at Hillstone Bank on Meridian—" Yes, her name is Leslie, the branch manager. Leslie's jaw clenched. "Excuse me, ma'am, I'd appreciate it if you didn't share employee names over the phone." Gloria didn't look at her. I'm fine. Just tired." A pause. "All right, I'll wait here." She ended the call, tucked the phone back into her purse, and turned. "My son's on his way." Leslie's arms folded. "Ma'am, I need to remind you, raising your voice or causing a disruption can be grounds for removal." Gloria tilted her head. "Do I look like I'm causing a disruption?" Leslie's face flushed. She glanced away, then back. I have a responsibility to protect this institution. If we don't verify funds properly, the bank is at risk. You think I'm a risk? I think you're being uncooperative, Leslie snapped. That was it. That one word. A man a few spots back muttered something. The woman behind Gloria leaned forward. She's being respectful. You're the one raising your voice, Leslie turned sharply. Please, mind your business. This is a private transaction. Doesn't feel very private, the woman replied. Gloria remained silent. She didn't need to argue. She just needed to wait. Minutes passed. Leslie stepped away, pretending to check something on her screen, but kept glancing at the door, like a dog waiting for the mailman. Then, the young teller from earlier returned, whispered something in Leslie's ear. Leslie's eyes darted toward the entrance, and then the glass doors slid open. In walked a man in a charcoal gray suit, early 40s, crisp white shirt, no tie. His walk was measured, unhurried, yet commanding. He didn't scan the room. He moved straight toward the center of the lobby, toward Gloria. Hi, Mama. Gloria smiled. Hey, baby. And just like that, the air in the room shifted. The man turned to the counter. Is there a problem with my mother's account? Leslie hesitated, unsure whether to extend a handshake or demand ID. She settled for a stiff nod. This is your mother. Yes, he said simply. My name is Grant Hightower. Leslie's lips parted. Her eyes flickered from Gloria to Grant, Mr. Hightower. As in Grant pulled out a leather card holder, set it flat on the counter, his ID, his business card, his position Hillstone Federal Executive Board Chair, and Leslie's voice disappeared for a full 10 seconds. Silence. Leslie stared at the card like it might catch fire, a faint twitch working its way across her cheek. Her brain struggled to process what her eyes had just read. Grant didn't rush her. He simply clasped his hand, standing tall and quiet. His voice was calm, but unmistakably firm. I'm asking one more time, he said. Was there a problem with my mother's account? Leslie swallowed. Mr. Hightower, we were just following procedures. Large checks need verification, and I, Grant, cut her off. Not loudly, but sharply. You looked her in the face and decided she wasn't credible. Grant's voice was steady, each word cutting through the silence like a blade. You questioned where the check came from. You asked how she got it. Does that sound like standard procedure? Leslie's lips parted, but no words followed. Her face had lost its color. Because I've reviewed those procedures myself, Grant continued. I signed off on them last quarter. Nowhere does it state that a longtime customer should be interrogated while her valid ID is ignored, especially not in front of a lobby full of witnesses. The air in the bank had gone thick, heavy with the weight of what was unfolding. The only sounds came from employees pretending to type, the hum of the AC overhead, the quiet anticipation of a room holding its breath. Gloria stood just off to the side, arms crossed. She wasn't smiling. She didn't look triumphant. She just looked tired. I'm sorry, Mr. Hightower, Leslie rushed to say. This was just a misunderstanding. I didn't mean to offend anyone, but you did, Grant said. I didn't. You did. His tone never wavered, never rose. That's what made it feel heavier. No shouting, no theatrics, just facts. Just presence. Leslie's voice faltered. I didn't know she was your mother. Grant stared at her. Why would that matter? Leslie's mouth opened, then snapped shut. You hear how that sounds? He asked. You just said it out loud for the first time, and that's when Leslie really looked at Gloria. Not just a glance, she saw her. And in her expression there wasn't just embarrassment now. There was fear. The fear of consequences. Grant motioned toward the chair behind the counter. Have a seat. Leslie hesitated. That wasn't a suggestion. Slowly she turned and walked toward the back, her heels tapping against the tile like a metronome marking the end of her authority. Grant stepped forward, picked up the check, glanced at it briefly, then entered a few numbers into the system. The young teller behind the counter watched in quiet awe. There you go, Grant said, handing the receipt to his mother. Full deposit, effective immediately. Gloria took the slip, folded it neatly, and nodded. Thank you, baby. You okay? I'm fine. They stood like that for a moment, just a mother and son in the eye of a quiet storm. You didn't have to come all the way down here, Gloria murmured. Grant gave her a look. Yes, I did, but you're busy. You have meetings, a board to run. He shrugged. You ran a household for 25 years, raised 4 kids on one income, and kept a Buick running long past its expiration date. I can spare a few minutes. Gloria chuckled softly. You always were dramatic, he smiled. And you always were the calm one. But the moment wasn't over. Grant turned, sweeping his gaze across the lobby. The customers were still there, some pretending to check their phones, others frozen mid-transaction, caught between discomfort and curiosity. The woman behind Gloria had quietly stepped back, giving them space. The man who had spoken earlier gave Grant a subtle nod of respect. Grant didn't acknowledge them outright, but he knew they'd remember this moment, not just because of who he was, but because of what they had witnessed. A woman being made to feel small until the truth walked in wearing a suit. Leslie wasn't gone for long. She returned with a senior associate, an older man clearly uneasy, attempting a smile but failing. He leaned in, whispered something to Grant, offered an apology, then gestured toward the back offices. But Grant didn't move. She's fine now, he said, nodding toward his mother. But this isn't about a transaction anymore. It's about how she was treated while doing something she has done 100 times without issue. The associate straightened. Mr. Hightower, we absolutely recognize that, and we're taking this seriously. Miss Ryland has been here less than a year. She's still adjusting to the stop. Grant's voice was quiet, but it landed with weight. Don't explain her behavior to me. That's not your job. That's hers. Leslie stood rigid, hands clasped too tightly, blinking back whatever words or emotions threatened to escape. Grant turned back to the associate. Your job is to look around this room and understand what it means when a respected customer is treated like a criminal simply because she doesn't look like she owns a yacht. I assure you, Grant held up a hand. Have you ever looked at someone like my mother and assumed she was up to something? Ever thought twice about a white customer depositing a check? The man flinched. That's not, don't lie to me. Grant's voice was steel. I'm not the board chair right now. I'm just a son. And what I saw here today was a woman who taught me to be honest, patient, and respectful, being treated like she forged her own name. Gloria placed a hand on Grant's arm. Bab. But he wasn't done. You could have asked her questions respectfully. Grant's voice remained firm, steady. You could have pulled her aside, explained any concerns, but instead you made a scene. You made her feel like she didn't belong here. And the only reason you stopped was because I walked in wearing a tailored jacket. Silence settled over the room. Gloria glanced around, taking in the expressions, some ashamed, some angry, some inspired. She reached for her son's arm, her touch light but certain. Let's go, she said softly. Let's not waste any more breath. Grant turned to her, his jaw still clenched, his chest still tight. But then he saw it, the calm in her eyes, the same quiet strength she carried when she worked 2 jobs and still made dinner. When the world threw its worst and she met it with grace. He exhaled, then nodded. All right. Together they walked toward the exit, passing the tellers, the customers, and a stunned Leslie who could barely lift her eyes. Just before stepping outside, Grant stopped. He turned back, looked at Leslie, and said quietly, Every customer who walks in here deserves the same respect you'd give your boss, because you never know who they are or who raised them. Then they were gone, but the fallout had only just begun. By the time Grant and Gloria reached the sidewalk, his phone was already buzzing. First, his assistant, then a board member, then the bank's general counsel. Word had spread faster than either of them expected. A customer had recorded part of the encounter. It was already making the rounds. Gloria glanced over. You're not going to answer that Grant let it ring. Number not now. They walked on, slow and steady. The sun warmed the top of Gloria's head as cars drifted lazily down Meridian Avenue. For a while, neither of them spoke. They let the moment settle, Finally, Gloria broke the silence. "You didn't need to come down here so fast," Grant chuckled, though there was no humor in it. "You say that every time. I can handle myself, I know you can." She stopped by a bench and sat. Grant stood nearby, glancing at his phone screen without unlocking it. Notifications stacked up like bricks, but he wasn't ready to build anything from them yet. Inside the bank, Leslie Ryland sat frozen in her small glass office. A regional manager had already called HR, demanded a full report before the end of the day. But none of that mattered to her in that moment. What she couldn't stop thinking about was the way Grant had looked at her, like she was smaller than she thought, not because he belittled her, but because the truth had exposed the size of her judgment. The next morning, Hillstone Federal's board released a statement. An internal investigation had been launched. Customers would be informed of changes to sensitivity training and customer relations policies, but that was just press language. The real work happened behind closed doors. Later that week, Grant sat at the head of the long conference table, the same table where investment strategy and profit margins were usually the focus. But not today. "I want every manager to recertify on customer service protocol," he said, "but not with those same corporate videos from 5 years ago. We're bringing in outside instructors, no lectures, eye contact, role play, reflection." An older board member arched a brow. "That's a big change." "It should be," Grant replied. Then, the inevitable question, and the manager Grant paused. He didn't want to fire Leslie, not because she didn't deserve accountability, but because this couldn't be about revenge. That wasn't what his mother had raised him for. "She's suspended," he said finally. "Pending review. But I'm more interested in fixing the culture that made her think that kind of behavior was acceptable in the first place." Later that evening, back at Gloria's home, the house was quiet. The only sounds were the soft tick of the old wall clock and the gentle boil of her evening tea. She sat in her favorite chair by the window. Grant was on the couch, tie loosened, shoes kicked off. "You handled it well," she said. He shrugged. "I let myself get angry." "You should have." He looked up. "You're not mad," Gloria let out a dry laugh. "Baby, I've lived through worse. That wasn't the first time someone tried to make me feel like I didn't belong. And it probably won't be the last." "That's the part that bothers me the most," Grant admitted. "That it's not new." She sipped her tea. "You can't control how people treat you, only how you answer them." Grant leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I just hate that you had to answer that kind of nonsense at this point in your life." Gloria smiled, warm and knowing. "That's the funny thing. The older I get, the less I let it bother me." She set her cup down. "What hurt me wasn't her words. It was the fact that she thought she could speak to anyone that way." The following week, Gloria returned to the bank. Same shoes, same purse, different energy. The moment she stepped inside, every teller behind the counter straightened. The new interim manager, a soft-spoken woman named Denise Alvarez, stepped around the desk to greet her in person. "Ms. Hightower," she said warmly, "we're so glad to see you." Gloria offered a faint smile. "Just here to withdraw some cash. Of course, I'll help you personally." As they walked toward the counter, Gloria noticed something different. The posters on the walls had changed. The ones advertising loans and savings accounts were still there, but new ones had been added. A series titled "Respect is Standard" now hung near the front. Each featured portraits of real customers from the community, all with the same message: "We see you. We serve you. We respect you." It wasn't a perfect fix, not yet, but it was a start. Denise guided her through the withdrawal, patient, clear, no unnecessary questions, no sideways glances, just business, handled the right way. Before Gloria left, Denise spoke again. "We're starting community meetings next month, listening sessions, really. Grant asked us to invite longtime customers like you. Would you consider speaking?" Gloria raised an eyebrow. "You want me to give a speech?" Not a speech. Just tell your story, however you'd like. Gloria thought for a moment. I'll come, but I won't sugarcoat anything. We don't want you to. When Gloria walked out that day, she didn't feel proud exactly. But she felt heard. And at her age, that meant something. Later that evening, Gloria and Grant sat across from each other in a quiet barbecue joint in Fort Worth. The kind of place that smelled like hickory and cornbread, where no one cared what they did for a living. You remember that time you got in trouble in 7th grade? Gloria asked, poking at her baked beans. Grant smirked. Which time? The one where you stood up to that teacher, Mr. Hale, Grant recalled. He said I plagiarized my paper, Gloria nodded. You came home with that paper in your hand, tears in your eyes, swearing you didn't cheat, and I believed you, but I still made you sit down and write the whole thing again, Grant chuckled. You said, sometimes doing it twice is what proves it was yours the first time. Exactly, Grant studied her. You think that's what this was? Doing it twice, Gloria shook her head. Number this time, someone else had to do the rewriting, not you. He let that sit for a moment. Then she added, I didn't raise you to be rich, Grant. I raised you to be right. Emotion flickered across his face. I know. And sometimes, she said, doing the right thing means you don't get to stay comfortable. You walk into rooms that don't want you. You speak when it's easier to stay quiet. And you go down to the bank, even when it feels beneath you, because nothing's beneath you if it's happening to someone you love. Grant blinked. Once. Twice. Then he smiled. You know, he said, you really should speak at that meeting. Oh, I will, Gloria said. But I'm bringing my purse, my cane, and my full voice. No softening it this time. Grant laughed. You never softened it, you just made it sound kind, she grinned, dabbing her mouth with a napkin. Kind doesn't mean quiet. 3 weeks later, the community meeting was held inside a modest civic center off Lancaster Avenue. No red carpet, no cameras. Just folding chairs, a podium, and a hand-painted sign. Listening circle, Hillstone Federal Bank. By the time Gloria arrived, the room was already half full. Not just bank staff, but customers, older folks, young professionals, small business owners. A few faces she didn't recognize but assumed were there to observe or report back. She wore a cobalt blue blouse that made the silver in her hair shine. No flashy jewelry, just her usual pearl earrings, the same ones she wore to her granddaughter's graduation. When she entered, the conversation softened. People turned, heads lifted. Grant was seated near the front, but he didn't stand. He knew his mother didn't need an escort. Not today. When it was her turn to speak, Gloria didn't go to the podium. She stood just beside it, close enough to be heard, but far enough to meet every eye in the room without formality. The space quieted. She cleared her throat. I'm Gloria Hightower, she said. I'm a retired school nurse. I've lived here for over 40 years, and I've been a customer of Hillstone Federal for nearly 15 of them. A few nods, a few murmurs of recognition. I came here today because I was asked to share my story. But this isn't just about what happened to me at the bank. That part is simple. I was treated poorly. I was questioned for trying to deposit a check with my own name on it. I was made to feel like I didn't belong. Not because of anything I said, not because of anything I did, just because of how I looked. Her voice didn't tremble, it didn't rise, but it carried low, full, and firm. I wasn't angry at first. I was hurt because I knew I hadn't done anything wrong, and yet someone still decided I was suspect. Someone decided my dignity was negotiable. She let that land. I wasn't going to speak up. I was just going to call my son and wait quietly. But here's what I realized later. Silence is what people count on when they treat others like that. They count on our politeness, our patience, our exhaustion. But sometimes the most respectful thing you can do is not let it slide. The room held its breath. I'm not here to destroy anybody's career. I'm not here for revenge. What I want is change. Not for me. I'm 73 years old and I've seen enough of this world to know what it is. But for the next person who walks into a bank in good faith and leaves feeling smaller than they came in. A man near the back wiped his eye. A woman across the aisle clutched her notepad but didn't write a word. We live in a country that talks a lot about fairness, about values, about treating everyone equally. But those ideas don't mean anything unless they show up in everyday moments, at the counter, on the phone, in how we speak to someone who doesn't look like us. She glanced toward Grant. He didn't smile, he didn't nod, he just watched her, the way you watch a fire that warms and humbles at the same time. "Thank you for listening," she said. Then she stepped back. No fanfare. The room didn't explode in applause. It didn't need to. A few hands clapped gently, a few heads bowed, but what lingered was heavier than noise. It was reflection. After the meeting, people lined up, not for handshakes or photos, but to talk. One woman said she'd experienced the same thing at a different branch. A young man said it reminded him of how his grandmother was followed in stores. And the bank,